Every time a Python developer types one command to install a package, that command now runs through a tool owned by OpenAI. Let that sink in for a second. The tool is called UV, and over the last 2 years, it quietly became the fastest, most loved way to manage Python, installing whole projects in the blink of an eye. Where the old installer took 6 seconds, UV finishes in a tenth of one, 10 to 100 times faster. Once you feel that speed, you genuinely never go back. But speed was just the bait. What UV really did was quietly swallow 4 separate tools at once: pip, poetry, pyend, and virtual end, and replace all of them. One small binary took the place of an entire messy toolchain. People started calling it the thing it always wanted to be, cargo, but for Python, and developers ran to it. 126 million downloads a month, nearly a third of every new Python project in under 2 years. It was built by a tiny company called Astral, the same people behind Rough and Thai, the tools that lint and type check a huge slice of modern Python. Then, in March 2026, the news dropped. OpenAI is acquiring Astral. The team behind UV is joining the company that builds ChatGPT and Codex. And that is the part worth stopping on. Whoever owns the installer owns the doorway that every single package walks through. That doorway now belongs to OpenAI. So is this a gift or a quiet takeover? The tools stay open source, but the single most load-bearing piece of Python plumbing now has one very powerful owner. Let us break down exactly what happened. To see why this matters, remember how Python used to feel. Installing a project was never one tool. You reached for pip to install, virtual m to isolate, pym to pick a version, pip tools to pin, poetry to manage, and twine to publish. 6 tools, 6 mental models, and endless ways for them to quietly disagree. Every new machine meant relearning which incantation went where, and half the internet was Stack Overflow threads about environments that would not activate. UV walked in and replaced all of them with a single command. Create the environment, resolve the dependencies, install them, lock them, run your code, publish the package. One binary does the whole job. No plugins, no separate runtime, nothing else to install first, and it feels absurdly simple. UV init to start a project. UV add request to pull in a dependency. UV run to execute it. Each command returns almost before your finger leaves the key. The whole environment resolved in milliseconds. Then there is the raw speed, and it is not a small win. In a standard benchmark, installing 23 packages took pip about 6.5 seconds. UV did the exact same work in 1500ths of a second on a warm cache. That is not an improvement, that is a different category entirely. When a thing gets that much faster, people do not just adopt it, they reorganize their whole workflow around it. Even from a cold start, with nothing cached, the gap holds. A full Jupyter Lab install that took pip 21 seconds finished in under 3 with UV. The secret is Rust, aggressive parallel downloads, and one global cache shared across every project on your machine. Install a package once, and every future project links to it instead of downloading it all over again. Here's the quiet irony most people miss. The tool that installs Python packages is not written in Python at all. UV is written in Rust, and so are Rough and Thai. Astral rebuilt the entire Python toolchain from the outside in a systems language purely for speed. UV also fixed the thing everyone quietly hated: reproducibility. It reads a simple PyProject file, resolves the full dependency tree, and writes a universal lock file that pins every version. Clone the repo, run UV sync, and you get the exact same environment. On any machine, every operating system, every single time. The old nightmare of, well, it works on my laptop, simply stops happening. It even installs Python itself. Ask for version 3.13 and UV downloads and manages the interpreter for you. No pyend, no system Python headaches. No more wondering which Python you are actually running. The whole thing lives behind one command. Put it all together and the adoption curve looks almost unfair. From 36,000 GitHub stars to over 85,000. 126 million downloads a month, passing poetry, and taking a double-digit slice of all of PyPy. And the big projects moved with it. Fast API, Pandas, Apache Airflow, Pydantic, Hugging Face, the libraries you already depend on adopted Astral tools inside their own pipelines. In continuous integration, UV became the default way to make a build fast. When the tools everyone builds on all quietly agree on one installer, that installer stops being a preference and becomes a standard. So who exactly is Astral? The company started with one person, Charlie Marsh, and one tool, a linter called Rough. It was so much faster than anything before it that it spread across Python almost overnight. and a company grew up around that momentum. Rough is the linter and formatter, and it is brutal on speed, around 100 times faster than the old Flake 8 and Black combination it replaced. It quietly ate a whole stack of legacy tools, and today it pulls 250 million downloads a month. Once a team tries it, going back to waiting seconds for a linter feels almost unthinkable. Then came a type checker, once codenamed Red Knot. Same Rust foundation, aimed squarely at MyPy and Pyrite, promising that same enormous speed jump for checking your types. 3 tools now, one consistent, blazing fast toolchain from top to bottom, and none of this was a hobby project. Astral raised a $4 million seed from Axel, then a Series A, then a Series B from Andreessen Horowitz, and strikingly, none of those rounds were ever announced at the time. A serious, venture-backed company built almost in plain sight, yet quietly. Which raises the question that hangs over every free developer tool: how does it ever make money? Millions of people depend on UV every day, and not one of them pays a cent for it. That gap, enormous usage, zero revenue, is exactly the pressure that eventually leads to a sale. Venture money is patient, but it is not charity. Sooner or later it wants a return. On March 19th, 2026, that sale arrived. OpenAI announced it would acquire Astral. The terms were not disclosed, the deal is still pending regulatory approval, and the entire team, led by Charlie Marsh, is set to join OpenAI. In one press release, the most widely used Python toolchain and the most talked about AI lab became the same organization. And they are not joining just anywhere inside OpenAI. They are joining Codex, the team building AI that writes software. OpenAI said the goal is to accelerate Codex and expand what artificial intelligence can do across the whole software development lifecycle. The logic gets sharp once you see it. If an AI agent is going to write code all day, it also has to install packages, lint them, and type check them, thousands of times over at machine speed. The slow old tools would choke instantly. UV and Rough are exactly the fast plumbing that makes an army of coding agents practical. Owning the toolchain is not a side quest for OpenAI, it is a core piece of making Codex actually fast. To their credit, both sides made a promise up front: the tools stay open source. UV, Rough, and Ty remain under their permissive MIT and Apache licenses, and development continues out in the open. On paper, nothing you currently rely on is being taken away, but here is why so many people paused. UV is not just an app, it is infrastructure. Every UV ad, every UV sync, every install inside a company pipeline flows through it. 126 million times a month, packages pass through a doorway that a single AI company now owns. The first worry is roadmap capture. When the same company builds both the coding agent and the toolchain it runs on, the tools can start optimizing for the machine. Features that matter to Codex get prioritized. The messy edge cases that matter to human developers can quietly slide down the list. Nobody has to act in bad faith for this to happen. It is just where attention naturally flows when one customer matters more than the rest. The second worry is leverage. A toolchain this central could, in theory, be tuned to favor its owner. Faster paths for OpenAI, subtle friction for rivals like Anthropic. Nobody is claiming that has happened. The point is simply that, for the first time, the option now exists. The standard reassurance is the license. It is open source, so if OpenAI ever steers it wrong, the community can just fork it and walk away. True, but forking a project like UV is not free. It has hundreds of contributors, yet only around 45 people who could realistically maintain it. Legally forkable is not the same as easy to replace. We have seen this movie both ways. Some open source acquisitions left the project healthier, better funded, and moving faster than ever. Others slowly bent the tool toward its new owner until the community quietly drifted away. Which one this becomes depends on choices OpenAI has not made yet, and on how loudly the community insists that this plumbing stays neutral. So, gift or takeover? Honestly, as of today, almost nothing has changed. UV is still open, still absurdly fast, and still the best way to manage Python. The real risk is not in the code you run this week, it is in who gets to decide the direction 3 years from now. And that person now works at OpenAI. The healthy response is not panic. It is to stay awake, keep the fork option alive, and watch what they actually ship. 4 numbers to hold on to: 126 million downloads a month, 10 to 100 times faster than Pip, 1 acquisition in March 2026, and 1 still open MIT license quietly holding the entire promise together.